next presentation, which we are also very excited about. And so I would like to, I'll share my screen and I would invite Lisa Meneian from ECED, Gabrielle Coombs, and Eduardo Rebagliati from LDDI on their presentation, Optimizing Accessibility for Visual Learners, the Deaf and Hard of Hearing Early Childhood Education Program. Welcome, presenters, and please take it away, and I'll stop sharing my screen.
Thank you, Faiza. Okay. So I'm going to let Lisa start us up. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I am Lisa Meneian, and I'm currently an adjunct professor and cohort advisor for the deaf and hard of hearing cohort for the early learning program within UBC. So next slide, please, Gabrielle. And I have my team here with me, Gabrielle Coombs and Eduardo. You guys, oh, there's Eduardo. Do you guys want to take a minute to yourselves?
Sure. So I'm Gabrielle Coombs. I'm a learning designer at LDDI. And Eduardo?
And yes, I'm Eduardo, the learning technology specialist at LDDI.
Thank you. So this project is very much a labor of love, and there's a much larger team behind those of us that are here today. So we certainly thank them all for their work. But we're going to get right into it because I know that we're short on time today. So why did we create this program? Well, several years ago, I began discussions with one of my colleagues at UBC, Dr. Janet Jameson, around the critical shortage of early childhood educators within the province, and specifically those that are that have the skills and background and knowledge to work with deaf and hard of hearing children provincially. So each year in British Columbia, there are approximately 500 deaf and hard of hearing children that are from the ages of birth to 5 years old. And we know that all children benefit from play, learning, and social experiences in early learning programs. And we know that the outcomes for children are better long-term if they have participated in early learning programs. But this critical shortage of early childhood educators, not only within British Columbia, but across Canada, has created significant barriers for all children, but particularly we're looking at deaf and hard of hearing children. So we know that this critical shortage also includes issues around the access of deaf and hard of hearing adults to become early childhood educators and to support our kids provincially. 27% child care centers actually turn away children because of,
I'm not the only one that references.
And 77%.
Lisa, you're mute.
Sorry, somebody muted me. Am I okay now?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. And so 77% of childcare centers actually have children with additional support needs in their care. We also know that the unemployment rate for deaf and hard of hearing Canadians is 32% higher than persons without disabilities. And when we say disabilities, we're using a medical model of disability to establish those statistics. We also know that 21% of deaf and hard of hearing persons are employed full-time, and 42% of deaf and hard of hearing Canadians are underemployed, meaning that they're working in jobs that are well below their qualifications, skills, and experience. Next slide, please, Gabrielle. So secondary to that, and in connection with one of the key principles of learning for deaf and hard of hearing children, is that all deaf and hard of hearing children benefit from interaction with adults who are deaf and hard of hearing themselves. And having a lived experience gives them a unique insight into the strengths and support needs of children with varying hearing levels. But as we said, there is a critical shortage of early childhood educators to support deaf and hard of hearing children, not only provincially, but also within our specialized childcare centers that are in the Lower Mainland that specifically cater to deaf and hard of hearing children who have continuously faced closure because of these staffing shortages. And this unique kind of qualification and knowledge in understanding deaf and hard of hearing young learners connects to issues around learning support, environmental considerations, social and peer support, language modeling, ways of being, cultural knowledge, and self-advocacy. And again, these are all identified areas of need in the principles of learning for deaf and hard of hearing children. Next slide. I think it skipped one. There we go. And so looking at the adult deaf and hard of hearing learner that we would be working with at UBC, we have to look through a lens of these students, not just as learners that cannot hear. So we had to consider what these unique characteristics of adult learners are. And coming from a trauma-informed lens and considering their own experiences as children in their formative years, looking at and understanding the lifelong impacts of language deprivation that they would have faced, including a lifetime of limited access to information, language, social discourse, and the resulting impacts on cognition and cognitive development, including language processing, working memory, as well as, of course, English language development, including vocabulary, literacy, and in essence, they continue to be English language learners. Now, just to clarify that language deprivation itself is not the result of something that is lacking or missing within the person. Instead, it is actually a result of the societal and environmental barriers that have contributed to the development of a disability itself, where none actually existed in the first place. And unfortunately, this cycle continues into adulthood as these learners face and continue to face language suppression. So that is a continued lack of access to information and language due to the chronic societal and environmental barriers, including those within post-secondary education systems. We also need to consider the intersectionality of deafness that may coexist with other identities, including students that may have emigrated from other countries. And all of the rights of these students are clearly outlined in the UN Convention of the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, as well as the Accessible Canada Act, which was ratified in 2019 and recognizes sign language as a language of deaf persons. And more recently, the Accessible BC Act, which identifies and recognizes sign languages as the primary language of deaf persons in BC. So we've embraced this project with a vision of a strengths-based approach and with the lens of deafness as ethnicity, thus recognizing that the shared experiences of deaf persons mirror those of other ethnic minorities. Next slide. So some of the barriers that we examined to current online learning for deaf and hard of hearing learners include, for example, the vocabulary and language used. So the high level of academic vocabulary and jargon, the continued use of live captions and relying on live captions and the poor quality of these, the lack of access to American Sign Language interpreters, issues of divided attention when videos are used and students are having to read captions and pay attention to video at the same time, or when there is any kind of live online learning happening, issues of divided attention of having to watch an interpreter and missing what the instructor is focusing on. We also had to consider the cognitive fatigue and overload as deaf and hard of hearing learners are working extra hard to piece all of the information together that they're presented with in multiple modalities. The heavy reliance on videos and podcasts in online learning platforms, which are not accessible, and missed opportunities for peer support and shared learning opportunities, particularly because of the shortages of sign language interpreters, and also the learned passivity that develops in deaf and hard of hearing learners because they are working through an interpreter on an ongoing basis. The quality of the captionings is an issue that we're going to talk about in the next slide, which perpetuates a cycle of language deprivation and is a form of language suppression in itself. So we were very aware of the missing link in that social cultural model within online learning platforms, that there is a diversity deficit, that there are continuing institutional barriers, both physical, environmental, information, and communication, as well as attitudinal barriers. And again, if we look at it from a social and cultural model, that these barriers are a consequence of a lack of systems organizations and social organization. Next slide. And so looking at the accessibility model that we have co-developed, and we also had the unique experience of working with and being able to hire a deaf consultant in the development of our program. But working with captioning standards as they were set by and are set by the Canadian Association of Broadcasters, specifically the Joint Societal Issues Committee on Closed Captioning Standards, working with ASL interpreters that are registered and qualified, students being able to have direct communication with instructors in ASL for discussions and support and not having to always work through an interpreter. Readily accessible notes and module notes for each lesson through PowerPoint downloads. And then, of course, of great importance is the cultural competence of the learning platform and the learning design, making sure that we have representation and that diversity is included, not just in photos, but also looking at the written language, the use of deaf children in the images and video that are actually using American Sign Language to communicate. And just keeping in mind with a bilingual, bicultural model that we endeavor to use with the children and should be using with the adults as well. And next slide. And I'm going to pass this over to Gabrielle now to speak to.
Great. Thank you, Lisa. So as Lisa has already discussed, this program has involved sort of a lot of different considerations, and something that has been really critical to the success of the program has been ensuring that any video content, and there is quite a lot of video content for this course, for this program in general, that everything is captioned really not just adequately, but really well. I think that this has been a really great learning experience for myself and for Eduardo as learning designers and tech specialists in thinking about what accessibility really means. And the captioning is kind of a really good microcosm of describing what that means. So thinking about things like open and closed captions, so whether the captions are burnt in to the video or whether they are things that you can toggle on and off, what kind of vocabulary is being used. Again, Lisa mentioned earlier that a lot of the time, auto-generated captions, like the ones that you might be using for Zoom right now, are usually really bad with technical vocabulary. They might recognize something as something else. It happens often, with, again, technical language or, quotes or jargon or slang. And the other thing too with captioning is thinking about things like sentence structure and grammar and punctuation. Obviously, spoken English is not the same as written English, and so making sure that the use of grammar and punctuation is sort of facilitating the understanding of the context of what's happening in the video. The other thing too, and this has been critical for me in my work with sort of captioning some of the videos that we have, is understanding how important it is to indicate who is speaking, especially in a video with multiple speakers. If there's someone speaking off camera, indicating that in the captions as per those guidelines that Lisa mentioned earlier. The other thing too, things like background sounds, including those, they can be really critical for understanding the context of what's happening. And then really importantly, tone of voice. I think now to a video that I captioned earlier, and we had a video of a young girl who looked really distressed, but she just had this incredibly like beleaguered tone in her voice, and trying to make sure that that was captured because, you know, spoke like words are only a small actual amount of communication. Tone is really critical. So making sure that in the captions that those pieces aren't missing as well. So captioning has been a really big part of this project, but that is a component of the video work which has been done. And I'm going to pass over to Eduardo now to sort of go into a bit more depth about how we achieved some of the video for this, this program.
Thank you, Gabby. Yeah, so I'm going to be talking a little bit about how the videos were built. And then we can also have some ideas from Lisa about the rationale for how the video was organized. So we basically came up with a system that we developed to build the videos. And this is something that requires some strategic thinking and planning. So some like initial testing to find the best way of producing the videos, because they have many elements and many components. And I'll be sharing some examples, so this becomes more clear for you to understand. But once we have developed that system, the process has become much smoother, and we're able to produce in a faster way. So I think that one of the essential things when we are creating this kind of projects is always to think with a good strategy, and also like plan ahead how are you going to be organizing the production in different phases. And I will describe these phases next. So we have 3 phases when we are producing these videos. The first one is the actual recording. So that's done by Lisa and using a software called OBS, which is for recording your screen. And we also have the recordings of the interpreters. So first Lisa records the videos, then the interpreters see those videos and make the recording, watching those videos and listening to these videos. Then the next step, we go into post-production, which is the whole like editing aspect of the project, and that is done in Camtasia. And finally, we go into captioning, and captioning is it's quite interesting because we tried different platforms to find the best captioning software, or the one that would allow us to make it in a faster and more efficient way. And we tried many of them, but we came to the conclusion that Adobe Premiere Pro was the best one. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to share my screen and just quickly show you kind of like the final product of what we have, and then some show you also like how we work in the different phases. And I can do that in a couple of minutes, so you get a clear idea of how that's done. So let's see.
Eduardo, do you need me to stop sharing so you can?
No, just 1 second, please. Okay. I'm going to share now. Okay, did you see my screen?
Yes,
Yep.
we do.
Perfect. Yes. So what we see here, this will be the final product. So
Hello, everyone.
oh, no, sorry, this is the thing with the other one. Sorry about that. Okay, so this is what the final product looks like.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Module 4. This week we will be looking at Chapter 6 in the textbook Becoming and Being an Early Childhood Professional.
And Lisa will in why we organized it in this way in a couple of minutes, but you can see we have the presentation on the left, and then we have Lisa also as the speaker and the interpreter on the right side.
Help us to bridge ideas and practices that are considered in that continuum of play-based learning.
So like I was explaining, we work with different software to build this. The first one is Camtasia. And 1 second here. Oh, okay.
Camtasia is a UBC supported tool, right? It is available for everyone who wants to do these kind of videos.
Yes, that is correct. And we found that Camtasia is really good for editing. In my experience, I've used other software for creating editing, and the learning curve is more complex, but we found that Camtasia is quite easy to control and organize for projects. So basically what you see here on the lower area, we see the different tracks that we have. So this one corresponds to the presentation. I'm moving it so you can recognize it. Then we have like Lisa's window as well, and finally the interpreter. And we found a way of doing this in a more efficient and fast ways. So this is all the videos for specific modules. So this will be module 8. So instead of having one Camtasia session for each video within a module, that can be like 8 videos or 10 videos, we end up just creating one session, and then we can produce all the videos on the same session, and that saves us a lot of time. So obviously, like the videos that the interpreters send us have like different dimensions. So there's a whole aspect in organizing the content in one same video. And we also like enhance the audio just for those purposes. And finally, that's phase 2. And then phase 3 is done here. So this is Adobe Premiere Pro, like I was mentioning. And this is great for creating captions, very efficient and very fast. We were quite amazed with the results. So basically, once you load up the video, as you can see the video at the top right, the video doesn't have any captions yet. And we can create, first of all, transcribe the sequence. So what the software does there is it analyzes all the audio and creates a transcription. The transcription is quite accurate. So normally we don't have to do much edits unless we have like some specific words, like technical words, sometimes names of people, these kind of things. So it's not either that we just like process it and it's done. It does require some quality control. So once we have the transcription, we just hit this here to create the captions. And you can see just in a couple of seconds, it generates all the captions for the video. So on the top left, you can see how it segments different parts as the speaker is presenting.
Everyone, and welcome to Module 4. This week we will be looking at Chapter 6 in...
And one of the nice things of Adobe Premiere Pro is that it allows us to have more control over the design of the caps, which is something that we didn't find in other software. So we can, as you saw in the final product, we can change the position, we can change the font size, and of course we can do adjustments to the actual caption. So that's normally kind of like the one last step that we do. We just go over each one of these, just making sure that nothing is incorrect, nothing is missing. And we have found that it doesn't take too much, it doesn't take a lot of corrections, just a couple of things that we normally have to improve for each video.
Great, a lot of work.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We have 2 more minutes. just to highlight.
Yes, thank you. So I'll finish up our presentation just by talking about some of the design work that we've done as well. So obviously the videos are a really critical component of the courses, but we have also been adapting courses that are from the existing Early Childhood Basic Certificate that exists within UBC's Early Childhood program regardless. So what we sort of thought when we took them, that, we'd make the videos and it would be fine, but obviously an adaptation takes a little bit more than that, especially with everything that Lisa had mentioned in terms of, a lifetime of deprivation from language and the sort of specificities of being sort of bilingual if you are somebody who uses ASL or are deaf or hard of hearing. So for the courses, we had to make some accessibility adaptations, some organizational changes, things like adding really clear headings, ensuring that everything was organized into accessible, smaller chunks. So while the courses that we had sort of undergone a level of accessibility sort of checks, we did find that there was a lot more deeper work that we had to do to sort of get it up to the standard that was really required to do justice to these students when they were studying. So, ensuring that everything had clear headings where necessary as well, reorganizing some of the materials so that it was more predictable, more consistent. And then at some points as well, we found that, as Lisa mentioned, with some of the videos and resources that were present in some of the existing contents, maybe changing or adapting those as well. So in this case, for example, pardon me, I'll go back, we may have some adjustments to make to a video where, it didn't have captions, we needed to add captions. Or if there was a video where we found, okay, maybe it would be better actually to have some representation of deaf children rather than another example of a hearing child, let's, change that content as well. So from this, we've learned a lot. We've learned about making sure that online learning is obviously a great way to make learning more accessible, especially as it pertains to sort of mitigating that divided attention that Lisa mentioned, but that it does come with its own sort of laundry list of issues too. So making sure that if we are using video, that it's captioned adequately, making sure that things are labeled correctly, avoiding, jumping to and from different places. So for example, you can see here that we used an H5P learning object to make sure that students didn't have to move between platforms overly. And then again, really viewing this as making sure that the content is not just accessible, but relevant to the group, being more mindful of their cognitive load, things being organized in a way that sort of makes sense for this particular cohort of students. As Lisa said, this has been a labor of love. I'll finish up now. And if we, I don't know if we do have any time for questions, but if there are any, of course, I'm sure we're all happy to field them.
I think we can continue the conversation through the chat.
Yeah.
But I will invite the next presenter to do the presentation. It's been amazing to have you, and it's such an important topic. And thank you for sharing your work.